about conducting an interview for Project 2. And the interview is going to be really a key part of this project. Without it, you can't earn a passing grade. So you want to start thinking about who you're going to interview right away. We've, again, on a short semester, and so you've only really got 3 weeks to develop this project to get that interview. Okay, so the first couple of things you want to do, first of all, there's a chapter in Grizz Writes by Marilyn Borner and Jenna Katz, and it's on what to do before, during, and after an interview. You'll want to go ahead and read that chapter before you begin thinking about who you're going to interview and what questions you're going to ask. The next obvious thing is to figure out who you want to interview, and come up with 2 to 3 names, because your first person might decide they don't have time to do it. And again, short semester, they might be able to do it in a month or 2, but can they do it immediately? Can they do it this week? Those are the questions you want to ask. Once you've got your 2 to 3 people picked out, put them in order. Who would you ideally like to interview first? And waste no time emailing that person. Now, when you email them, you want to do a few things. First of all, you may need to introduce yourself. If you don't know who this person is, they don't know who you are, spend a little time, very little time, just explaining that you're a student at Oakland University, that you're taking a class in first-year writing, and that you've been asked to research the writing that people do in your chosen field of study. Once you've done that, you've established who you are and what the assignment is, then you can give them some idea for why you want to interview them in particular. And of course you want to give them some indication that this interview isn't going to drag on for days. So let them know, I'm looking for maybe 20 to 30 minutes of your time where you can talk to me about the writing that you do every day and why that writing is important and what I need to know as someone coming into the field about writing in this particular field. Once they've agreed to meet with you, you want to do a few things. You want to go online and do some research into their background. If they have a resume online, if they have a LinkedIn account, for example. Do a little background research so that you know who they are and what they've already done, so that you don't need to ask a lot of those questions first. The next thing you want to do is come up with 3 to 4 really good open-ended questions that are going to get them talking. So an open-ended question would be something like, tell me about the type of writing that you've done in the last week for your job. Tell me about different types of writing that you've been asked to do over the course of your career. These are questions that are going to get them answering, right, and elaborating. And you only want 3 or 4 because you want to give yourself an opportunity to do a few things. To ask follow-up questions, right? So that you're not walking out having questions about something they've told you. But also because there's a chance that they'll run off on a tangent, and the tangent's interesting and important to your project, but maybe you don't need 8 to 10 questions to get there. 3 to 4 good questions can get you there in 20 to 30 minutes. Before you leave, you want to make sure that you ask one final question. And the good final question is there something I should have asked you that I didn't? If you were me conducting this interview, what would you ask yourself about the writing you do? What have I missed about what you write, how you write, why you write as a professional in this field? So now you've got all of your questions and you've got your data. Thank them for their time, leave, and then you want to follow up with a handwritten thank you, right? Or with a really well-written email thanking them for their time and telling them maybe what you learned from the experience. Because this isn't just someone you're interviewing your first semester in college, this is someone who may actually be an employer at some point in the future, or who may be a good contact for you. So you want to keep that relationship going. Now, one thing that I didn't talk about is when you first arrive for the interview, and you want to get there relatively early, maybe 5 minutes early, to show them that this is important to you and that you respect their time. Once you've sort of gone over again why you're there and what you're hoping to get out of the interview, you want to get from them something that we're calling informed consent. And this is a special term in the academy, a special term in research, which is basically a way of describing the information that you provide to research subjects so that they understand what the research is and where it will be used and how it will be used, and so that they give their consent to participate. So for something like an interview, I've posted a consent form online that you can sort of crib from and work from for these interviews, but you definitely want to spend a couple of minutes during the interview going over the informed consent form and asking them for their signature. You can let them know that if they'd like, they can remain anonymous, although I personally, as your instructor, will need to know who they are. In your paper, you can keep them anonymous. And you'll also want to ask them if there are maybe two or three sample documents that they've written that they'd be willing to share with you. Right? And they can redact the names, for example, of patients. They can redact information that they think is confidential. But you want to have documents that you can look at and say, rhetorically analyze them, right, for what features those particular documents have. So let's take a look at an informed consent form, and I'll go over that with you. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you're doing your reading in the class and keeping up with that. And you want to take a look at the sample writing in your field documents that I've posted in Moodle. These are sample student texts from past semesters, and they'll give you a good idea of the types of things you need to do with your document. All right, let's go to Moodle. Here we are in Moodle. You'll see what to watch. There's the tips for online research, and there's a handout for this below as well. There's also a handout for this interviewing video that you might want to take a look at. So under what to write, we've seen writing in the field assignment, the grading standards. You'll take a look at the reflective writing. We're going to come back to informed consent in a minute, but here's where you're going to upload your signed informed consent forms and the sample documents you get from the professionals in your field. In addition to Borner and Katz, you're going to read these particular articles here. And here's steps for conducting an interview, that particular handout. Tips for conducting effective online research. And you're going to see that I've got a couple of sample student papers here as well. You might want to take a look at those because it'll show you sort of what's expected for this assignment. All right, back to informed consent now. So this is essentially written to the person you're interviewing. There's an introduction that explains that they're being asked to participate in an interview being conducted by, and you'll put your name there in the blank. And the purpose is to let them know more about the research so they can decide whether to consent to the interview or not. And this is why you go over this before you begin your interview. So it will tell them why the interview is being done, to learn more about your profession or major and the kinds of writing you do as a member of your field. It tells you who can participate in this study, and for this study, only people who are 18 years or older can participate. It tells you about the procedures, which is essentially an interview. This says 30 to 40 minutes. You'll probably again shoot for 20 to 30. They'll also be asked to share some de-identified and appropriately redacted samples of documents they write as a major or as a member of their field. How many people will be participating? Well, it says here you've got 2 interview subjects, and that's there to cover you for this assignment, but you're only required to do the one with a professional in your field. Again, it's not a bad idea to connect with a major over this one as well. This talks about some of the risks, side effects, and discomforts that the person who's being interviewed might experience, and of course, they're not being exposed to any risk greater than those encountered during a normal day. It tells them that they can choose a pseudonym if they would like, and that will be used in the final project, although of course I'll know their name because they'll have signed this informed consent form. It tells them that their decision to participate is voluntary, that they can choose not to, they can choose to end the interview at any time, and they can refuse to answer any questions. If they have questions, they should contact me. And you can provide their email address at the bottom of this form if you'd like. Now that's page 1. You'll leave that with them so that they understand what their rights are. And then you're going to ask them to sign page 2. They'll put their name here, the signature, the date, and the time. And then if they want to use a pseudonym, they'll put that pseudonym there. And you're also going to sign page 2 as the person who's obtaining the consent. And then this page 2 is what you'll submit with your project.